I realized editing that I did not film an intro, and professional YouTubers are supposed to have an intro. So, hello! I am working on my soul survival cosplay from Fallout, and I realized I need a prop gun to fight monsters, bandits, and bad decisions. Honestly, I tried my best. And I'm really sorry if you hate my voice, but trust me, I hate it even more than you. This is my lovely workshop, or rather a corner I actually cleaned by moving all the stuff away from the frame. This is my boat suit that, well, looks questionable at this stage. And here is me, after solid 3 hours of fighting with lighting and camera settings. I started by making a blueprint for my laser rifle. Jesus Christ, English is hard. I started by making a blueprint for my laser rifle, and it's very easy to do, so I'll walk you through it. First, you need good reference photos and ideally a 3D model so you can get different angles. Next, you need software for this, and I'm using Adobe Illustrator because I'm bougie like that, but Inkscape is also great, and what's even better, completely free. You just put your reference in program, simply draw over it like when you were 6 years old trying to claim artworks from books as your own so your art teacher won't think of you as a talentless piece of garbage. Surprisingly, they always knew I didn't draw it myself. This is how my pattern looked at the end. I also took screenshots of the front and back to figure out how girthy of a boy it's going to be. Also, I put the link in the description so you can download it for free if you want. Figuring out the scale is also very simple. You also need any software that lets you measure pixels, and there's a site called knifegun.com that I'll link below. You just put in your height as character's height, and based on that you can measure the size of any prop you want. My character is kind of a bendy girl, so it's not completely accurate, but it gave me the idea of how big the gun needs to be. For base, I always search for a shape in my pattern that could be one layer, that the rest of the elements sort of rest on top of, and this is the shape I came up with. For the base, I used 2 layers of 5mm EVA foam with cardboard sandwiched in the middle. I recommend you get something sturdier and stiffer than that, like plywood, but that's all I had, so I used this French cook's face. He looked kinda sturdy. I cut my pattern using box cutter, and to glue them together I used the true love of my life, contact cement. But I realized I didn't close the can properly last time I used it, and it was pretty old. But it also felt kinda liquidy, so I was hopeful it would work anyway. For the weird indented part of the gun, I stopped before gluing the top 5mm layers of foam. I took my box cutter and cut a hole through the base at an angle. Next, I traced the size of the hole on my top layers, cut the sides and glued it so it covered it. I am very sorry, I cannot explain it any better, just watch the clip a few times and you'll get it. It's not complicated, I swear. After this, I was done with the base of the bases, or the second base, or the we got there pretty fast. It looks like absolutely nothing right now, but trust me, don't click away, it's going to be slightly better, I swear. Next day I made sure to dress in my worst attire, because it was time to sand my life away. And this is the part I won't show you, because I sand in my second bathroom for easy cleanup, and it's like closet size, so I have yet to figure out how to fit my tripod and lamp in it so you can actually see what I'm doing. So, grab a respirator, eye protection and sand away. We're rounding up the edges so it goes from this to this. Side note, my cats feel the urge to cuddle whenever I'm too busy to do so, and they absolutely love foam. They love chewing it, chasing it, biting it, eating it, and apparently sniffing it too when I'm trying to get the dust from my clothes, so... As you can see, I'm very happy about this because I hate sanding with a burning passion. I don't really enjoy fearing for my life when I work, and when I hear that rumbling sound, I always envision like a drill bit shooting into my eye, or like foam that's destroying my lungs, and eye protection and mask doesn't really ease that fear as much as it should, Since the foam layers added bulk to my piece, I sometimes use tape to help measure how much bigger I need to make pattern pieces. It's pretty straightforward process. You cut a piece of pattern out, trace it on whatever foam thickness you think will match and glue in place. Sort of like puzzles. Except you know where the pieces go and you have to make them from scratch, and well, pretty much nothing like puzzles at all. Now, for the pain in my existence, I searched around my house for something that would be a good base and decided that a cup of miscellaneous spray would do just fine. I covered it in 3mm foam and sort of fucked around with it until it looked good enough. This part was so messy, I can't think of a better way to describe this. And then when I was finally happy with this, and I am too ashamed to admit how long it took, I cut some shallow lines on it with a box cutter and used my heat gun on it to open the lines up. And then I added some more details like not so shapely circles and all this stuff. For this thing I cut a divot in foam and glued it shut to make the piece bend, and then I glued a piece of warbler that I heated up previously to make it stay in the shape I wanted. I am sorry, my tongue is just like giving up on this English thing. By 4 AM this night, I was a whole season of Orange is the New Black in, and my room looked like the place you would dump a dead body in. Now it was time for a trigger. I firstly used a PVC tube and my brute force to create indented shape it has around the trigger. This time I heated a warbler and covered the foam from both sides because I was afraid someone might actually try squeezing the trigger when checking out the gun. I used warbler to make it all good and sturdy and make sure no one breaks my gun. Foam clay is ridiculously easy to use. You just wet your surface, wet your fingers a bit and start sculpting. And that sounds like a sex joke, but trust me, it's not. I, for example, am absolutely terrible at it, and I mean sculpting in clay, not anything else. So I sculpted the general shape and prayed I'll be able to sand it down to something not as terrible in 2 days. Next day I decided to clean up just a bit and organize my workspace before I go fully feral from this mess. Then I began working on the bottom part of the gun. I used wooden stick as a base for that, wrapped it in foam and hid ugly edge at the bottom to be filled up later on, or completely forgotten. You can't see the bottom anyway. Since this part of gun is pretty flimsy, I used warbler here and there, but apart from that it was business as usual, tracing, cutting and gluing.
Fly it straight into a black hole somewhere out in outer space, girl. Baby, it's you. Baby, it's true. Baby, it's you. I don't want anything else but you. Baby, this world, it drives me crazy. I've been running around the room trying to make some extra gravy. I've been staying up for hours just staring at the ceiling. Now she's starting to stare back, but I guess looks can be deceiving. And the spaces we call love won't have a fade.
This gun has some rivet things in different sizes, so in some parts it's googly eyes, in some I punched in literal nails, and then for the smallest ones I found these cute gemstones that I'm pretty sure are meant for your face. Put a bit of super glue on these bad boys and they were here to stay. I also added this pointy thing, I think it's for aiming, I don't know. Last things I did was patching up all the mistakes. I used foam clay again. I stuck it into all the shitty areas I cleverly hid from you before, and then when the foam clay was dry I sanded down the excess. Normally I would finally try to prime it with Plastidip just to save some time, but foam is very soft and not so sturdy. Instead, I watered wood glue with a bit of water and applied it in very thin layers. It takes some time to dry, so I decided to finally clean up my room, because at this point it looks straight up like a dump. and I spent there so much time, I myself started to feel like a mole rat.
It's not the worst thing that has happened, so you steal.
Prime gun was nice and shiny, and wood glue hid even more fuck-ups that I couldn't hide with foam clay or battle damage, so... Keep in mind, I am absolutely terrible at this. I just wing it and pray for the best, but the beauty of Fallout is, the point is to make stuff shitty at times. It's messy, it's old, you know, it's seen some stuff on the wasteland. I would use my airbrush to paint most of it, but it broke a few months ago and I sort of don't have the fortune to spend on another one yet. So behold, a sock. I used the sock and some airbrush paints to dab the metallic texture on the gun. I also used a brush when I absolutely had to, because some parts of the prop were simply too hard to get with a sock. Then I mixed myself some green and tried to record this aesthetic Instagram paint mixing video, but you know, I'm not sure it worked very well. I dabbed the green on the base and then added a bit more yellow to the paint and dabbed that on too to add some variety or something. I don't know, you really shouldn't be listening to me here because I am terrible at this. Then it came down to painting the tube thingy and I realized I only had a shitty transparent yellow acrylic paint. At first I thought I could get by painting like 1,000 layers of this and live my life to the fullest, but then I looked up my reference again and turns out I had to paint like 3 more elements yellow, and that was a pain in the ass I chose to avoid. I waited till the next day, stopped by the artsy shop on my way from work and picked up some proper yellow paint. Except it turns out this one was shitty as well, so you know, that's life. Disappointing. Anyway, I globed it on and it turned out terrible, so there's that. But hey, I fixed it the best I could and it was time for the best part of painting. Even when I do have access to airbrush, I always use oil paints to shade because they're so easy to use. You only need, well, oil paint, a brush you don't care about, some cotton pads and the things you use for your ears, even though you supposedly are not supposed to. My technique, if I can call it that, is putting the paint where I want it with a brush and then blurring or spreading it and softening using cotton pads. Some people like to use paper towels, I sort of prefer cotton, I don't know why, it makes things smoother I think. You just glob it on and take the excess off and it doesn't dry, so you have hours to work with and it's not stressful at all. I also painted my battle damage and added some highlights to the edges using base silver I used for the gun. And behold, it was done! I used some random glossy varnish from the store to seal it. Oil paint dries in a few days, but I honestly never have the patience to wait. Turns out if you add varnish on top and be careful with it, it sort of works. And you can skip the wait time. Not sure if it's a proper way, but you know it works.